Well, next week, Canada will find out what the future of our relationship with our closest ally could look like. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could tackle trade or foreign policy with Kamala Harris, an ideological ally who once studied in Montreal, or he could pick up where he left off with former President Donald Trump, a relationship that saw everything from trade disputes to personal jabs on social media. For more on what both of those realities could look like for our country, we are joined by Bruce Heyman, former U.S. Ambassador to Canada. Always great to have you on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. Good morning.
Well, the Biden administration embraced much of the Buy American messaging of Trump's first term, and that's caused bumps in our relationship with the U.S., including on policies around dairy and electric vehicles. Should Canada expect anything different from a Harris presidency? Let's start there.
So let's make a clear difference between politics and governing. And when you looked at the political dialogue, yeah, it's very popular in the United States to talk about Buy America, and especially in a presidential race. But when we get into governing, you saw that a lot of things happened between Canada and the U.S. Kudos to the ambassadors of the U.S. in Ottawa and your ambassador in Washington to work together to find solutions, because you are our best trading partner, our best friend and ally. And it's a means of figuring out how to navigate the larger geopolitical needs of Buy America, Build America. And some of that is for national security reasons, some of it's for supply chains, and some of it, as Donald Trump talks about, is all about me, which is, I think, inflationary, but very dangerous.
All right, well, let's look at that sort of similar issue within the Trump presidency frame. A key part of Trump's campaign, we know, is his plan to impose a 10 to 20% tariff on all imports into the U.S. That's what he has said so far. We know it took Ottawa nearly a year to get Trump's tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum removed. Is Canada better prepared to negotiate with the Trump administration based on our experiences with his first term?
I would say I hope so. I don't know specifically, but we have fair warning now. And you had an example of how he used these for, on the basis of national security, tariff your steel and aluminum. That same tool could be used much more broadly. And this is one of those items that he has repeatedly mentioned in almost every campaign stop, every interview, how he is going to use tariffs. And so I think he's foreshadowing is even brighter here than at any other time. So I think he's going to try at least to put tariffs on everything, and Canada should be prepared.
On the campaign trail, Trump has repeatedly said he would end Russia's war in Ukraine, quote, in 24 hours. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has said Canada will support Ukraine, quote, for as long as it takes. How will those two contrasting approaches affect Canada's relationship with the U.S. if Donald Trump wins another presidency?
Another tough spot for Canada with a Trump presidency. Every indication is that he would likely hand over the territory gained by the Russians during this battle to Russia, and then call it even, let's get out, let's close off the war. That's a simplistic answer for a complicated situation and deep threat to peace throughout Europe. And that's the whole basis of NATO as a deterrence alliance. So there could be a lot of pressure on Canada from our NATO allies and Ukraine itself to be a larger participant, both in terms of money and military equipment and maybe even personnel to deal with a rising Russian threat.
Not to mention the fact that Trump in his first go-round repeatedly talked about pulling out of NATO altogether. So again, it's one of those wait-and-see scenarios. You are uniquely positioned to answer this question. I'm excited to hear your answer. Your time as ambassador ended in 2017. And since then, you have seen both of these candidates in action, Trump as president and Harris as a vice president. So based on your observations, what do you believe Canadians should expect from either Harris or Trump in the Oval Office?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. And I have been steeped in this, as you have said, over the last several years. I have warned Canada that Donald Trump's unpredictable nature and the threats that he's made with regard to tariffs, as you mentioned, or how he would round up Americans in the United States and deport them, poses great risk for your border if people start running north. He's going to separate ourselves from environmental policies to extraordinary extremes. Women's right to choose is under threat, and women may have to go to Canada for healthcare options. You are touching on so many of these in this interview, but it gets broader than that under Donald Trump. Is what is the role of Canada with the United States if we become an authoritarian country, and how we behave on the world stage? So it is a little more business as usual with the Harris administration, friends, allies, neighbors, trading partners. That doesn't mean we won't have differences to work out and negotiate through, but radical change if Donald Trump is president, and not radical in a good way, radical in a very stressful way.
Always appreciate your conversations. Former U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Bruce Heyman, you will be watching, we will be watching, and we'll probably have a discussion in a few days from now. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Be well.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.